Greetings and felicitations.
Hip, hip, hurrah, tally-ho.
Hey, my little Georgia Peach.
Hey, Puddin'.
Okay, what'd you think about this episode of Star Trek Discovery? Choose your pain.
Oh, I love this one. Yeah, I mean, I always thought this was one of the best episodes.
Absolutely. This felt like Star Trek to me on quite a few levels.
Yeah, it had a good story, it had good characters, and that's what it's about.
It had a moral. Right at the beginning,
yes.
the moral, the idea of giving of yourself or your convenience for another species that you don't quite understand, but for the sake of doing right for the sake of right, that was the theme of this on one of the stories. There are multiple storylines going on. So let's talk about the episode. What did you think about Michael Burnham and starting out by having a nightmare of what it was like to be Ripper, or the creature that was contained?
That was a nice way to break into the show. Mm-hmm. And knowing that Michael has these problems with how Ripper is being treated, and she's pretty sure that it's being misunderstood, and she was right. And so it emphasizes how she feels, and it gives us a way to sort of like to get into her mind, but also to help us empathize the way she does with the tardigrade.
Yes. And that was the key. We're going back to the original series. Very much there was a creature in Devil in the Dark that was misunderstood. And this reminds me of that level of Star Trek. Having empathy for an unknown creature, and this time the creature served a purpose for the ship, and a sacrifice had to be made.
They couldn't just keep causing pain to this creature against its will. So what they did by letting it go at the end, and that was a beautiful scene too, showing the tardigrade in space when he opened back up.
Oh, I loved it. I absolutely loved it so much. I agree. It's probably my favorite scene in the whole Discovery series. That's how much I enjoyed it.
That was beautiful, and the visual effect was very effective too.
Yes. Yep. It was but the emotional impact was fantastic. And we're seeing sacrifice on multiple levels, because Stamets ended up wanting to see what would happen if he could, by using parts of the tardigrade in himself, if he could be the vehicle for making the jump.
Well, I think part of that was he was being put under pressure to make the spore drive work, and because the tardigrade could no longer do it because it had gone into its hibernation state.
Yes, that little pill bug state.
Yeah. So, I mean, Stamets was, in some ways it was to save himself because of the pressure, but yes, I think he was empathetic too, and he was hoping it would work, and yeah, he put himself in danger with what he did. So yes, he was taking a risk of himself to save the ship.
Now, what did you think about Saru in this episode? Because he had to make the jump to save the captain.
Saru's story was wonderful in this. So now we're seeing how he has his self-doubt, asking the computer what makes a good captain. Is he a good captain? These kind of things. And, we're always asking ourselves the kind of questions. Am I doing the right thing? Am I a good person? And so we got to see Saru's doubts. You know he's a gentle person. We've always seen that on the show. But we also find that he can still give the orders when he needs to. Yes.
And oftentimes the best Star Trek is the Star Trek that doesn't have the best answer, that you can't always... Life is not about black and white. It's shades of gray. He had to save the captain, so he made the decision of, I don't care, pour water on this thing. Make it jump again. We'll figure it out later. Even though I have a lot of compassion for the creature, I see where he was coming from. Because it's a hard position to be put in.
When you're the captain, you have to make the hard decisions. And yes, he said, we've got to do this now to save the captain. And and then we'll worry about how the tardigrade is feeling. And you can understand why he said that.
Yeah, I thought that storyline was great. Also, the storyline of Captain Lorca. His shuttle got attacked by Klingons. He was put into a Klingon prison. We're introduced to Ash Tyler.
Yes.
At the time, we didn't know that he would become a major character in the Discovery story, but we realized he would. Interesting introduction to hardcore Fenton Mudd in the Discovery timeline. What'd you think about Harry Mudd?
I liked him on this show, but still, he's nothing like the Harry Mudd that was on the original series.
Absolutely not. I mean, it's just as it goes on, we see that to us it just proves this is a different timeline. But we like how it was presented.
I mean, as the character, I mean, they could have just given him a different name, but the character was a good character. He was a good foil in this episode, and
he was conniving, using that little like scorpion bug to
get secrets because it recorded things, and to always choose the other guy when the Klingons said choose your pain.
Interesting concept, huh? How this allowed the prisoners not to be cohesive with each other, but to rat each other out.
Yes, I guess they didn't have the space to just separate the prisoners and put them in different.
It's just mental. Cells, it was more mental anguish than anything else. That's what the Klingons were using.
Yes, and with Ash Tyler, we did know like the actor that plays him, Shazad Latif, was supposed to be a regular. We kind of knew that actor's name was supposed to be there.
Yes,
but we didn't know until now that he was. Actually, and I think they still haven't revealed it yet about Vogue.
They haven't revealed it yet. But I thought it was interesting, and it was curious. Even Captain Lorca picked up on it. Like, what's up with it? How could you be in this prison so long? Nobody lasts like this. So there's an amount of distrust right from the beginning, which I found that intriguing.
Well, Tyler answered him that the captain of the ship took a liking to me. And then you see it later too when she says something to him like, you can never leave me.
But at the first I was like, what's that supposed to mean?
Yeah, she just found him amusing in a lot of ways.
The escape, what did you think about the escape?
I love the escape. And so Tyler said like getting out of here was always a 2-man job, but I was waiting for the right person to come along. I mean, that was a great little plot point too. So he knew he could get out, but like he always knew that the Klingons would put another prisoner in there eventually.
Yeah.
But I guess he also knew, since he knew that the Klingon captain liked him, I guess he knew he wouldn't really die before his chance to escape.
L'Rell got her face burnt.
Yes. So and we see her burnt face later on too.
But I thought that was a great scene because we knew that she was a main Klingon, and to see her get attacked like that, it left us wondering. This episode left us hanging at the end, saying, "Well, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen to L'Rell? What's the deal with this guy Tyler?" Saru, boy, he was hardcore at this point. He was not empathetic. Is this a change of character? Michael Burnham, boy, great character development with her about how she had so much compassion for this creature. She was willing to risk everything again, going on her gut feeling.
Even though she had already been to prison for mutiny, she still follows her heart. She still does what she thinks is right. I mean, what else can one do? So she's always the conscience of the show.
Yeah, I think it was great. And when we walk away from Star Trek, we normally say with the other series, how does this line up with canon? And we don't even bother doing that with Discovery. We find that the best way to enjoy Discovery is just view it as its own timeline. But the best Star Trek has a moral implications to it or a message. And this message was very clear about how important it was to Just let the tardigrade be itself, be free. Don't captivate it, and don't prod it and use it as a tool against its wishes.
A lot of that in the episode about who people are, such as Tyler, which we'll find out later who he is, and Saru finding himself, and the tardigrade being set free. And then we also find out that this is the first time we saw Hugh and Stamets in a relationship, that we find out that they're actually a couple.
Oh, yeah, in their quarters. And I like that ending, too. The ending was like a Twilight Zone ending.
The mirror, the reflection in the mirror.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What does this mean?
it just puts something there for you to go. So, we know they're going to do something with that later. We don't know what at this point. But that was a cool little image there. And also this was the first time they used the F word on Star Trek.
That's true.
Yeah, but the way I am though, I glossed over it I've gotten so used to hearing it in other places. I hardly even noticed it when I first saw this episode, and everyone was talking about it, and I was like, yeah, well.
Yeah, don't have a mental meltdown over it.
But
the other half is, I'm just not thrilled with Star Trek. I don't want my Star Trek to be Game of Thrones. I like Star Trek to be Star Trek.
That's true, and they don't need to use that kind of language to get people to talk about the show. But in some ways, like you might say, they're doing it to feel more natural. Or
I felt that it was inserted. There's a couple things that this show does to insert just to get a media buzz. I'd rather have the media buzz based on the incredible storytelling. That's why I want it to be. But yeah, that's how I felt that this was thrown out there just to get social media on fire.
So I do like the, so when Saru pulled up when he asked the computer, what are the best captains in Starfleet?
Oh, that was great.
And I know, list. Everybody did their little pause to watch that list on their screen.
It was great.
Captain April, Captain Archer, Georgiou, Pike, and Decker.
Now, know what I was hoping for? That there would be names in there that we didn't know, that we weren't familiar with, to say, okay, there's others that we haven't seen on screen, that maybe their story will be told later. Number two, I was hoping that we'd get some characters that were brought out in the novels. I know the novels aren't canon, but I always like Easter eggs like that. But we did see captains that we were familiar with.
Yes, it was great to see those captains. And especially April, because he was never mentioned in canon before. He was mentioned in one of the animated episodes, and those are not considered canon, but they are.
Yes. So I thought that was the deepest dive out of that list.
Like Discovery is retconning a lot of the animated series, such as with the Spock with the Alice in Wonderland thing.
But even Matthew Decker, if we were to believe this was Prime Timeline, then we know that around this time he would be a very good captain along the Constellation, the Enterprise's sister ship. So that made sense.
Yes. And now one thing, there were Klingon prisoners. Remember in Star Trek 2 when Kirk said the Klingons don't take prisoners?
Exactly.
You have little things like that. And maybe Klingons have changed or whatever, but it is a line that makes you think. But
in this timeline, they take prisoners.
Yes. And when Lorca was talking to Mudd, and when Lorca said Starfleet didn't start this war, and Harry Mudd said, "Oh, but they did, because the minute they started to go where no one has boldly gone before."
Oh, that was like the intro text to Star Trek.
Yeah,
which was great.
It's just that Harry Mudd is so anti-Starfleet. And his ideals are completely different. He's there to be the one to argue, you people think you're doing the right thing all the time, but you're not. And that could be argued in other ways.
Yeah, this Harry Mudd is different than the Prime Timeline Harry Mudd. But I find him amusing.
He is amusing. He is a good character. I like him as a villainous character.
And there were ties, you could even say, to Dune, because when Michael Burnham is talking about the science behind the spore drive, she's essentially talking about folding time in space, just like they do in the Dune series. So, hey, we know that Star Wars has borrowed from Dune. Wouldn't surprise me if the writers of this episode were somehow influenced by Dune as well, Frank Herbert's classic.
And why not? I mean, yeah, because they can get ideas from anywhere.
So we both agree. Great episode.
Definitely. Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our Facebook group. Live long, and may the Force be with you. Nanu Nanu.